Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bear Experiment podcast. I'm your host, Monica Clavijo. Today's special guest is my friend, Daryl Shaun Price, who is a spiritual alignment coach. And I have been following his work now for several weeks now. And he's been very instrumental in helping me kind of understand a little bit better on how to align um, myself energetically to help with a lot of the struggles that human beings deal with on a daily basis. So let me give Daryl a brief introduction so that you guys get to know him a little bit better. So, Daryl Shaun Price has been a student of spirituality and the esoteric his entire life. While earning his bachelor's in history, he focused on the mystical and mysterious traditions of the civilizations he studied and earned a minor in religious studies as well. As a lifelong student of the esoteric and spirituality, he studied ancient philosophies from around the world and has employed practices that enhance his personal alignment for years. For over a decade now, Daryl has been helping others remember how powerful of a creator they are and how to create their happiest life by naturally being in alignment. He has a knack for making quantum theories and deep philosophy simple and practical for those he works with. He teaches his students to create their own meditation and mindfulness practices while learning to listen to their intuition as a way of life. His energy first approach has helped his students heal from debilitating issues, attract abundance and wealth, find more joy in relationships, and most importantly, live an inspired, filled, peaceful life with bliss. Now, the key to the alignment of your spirit, heart, and mind and body so that you naturally create your happiest life is to realize that everything that you experience is both a reflection of your level of alignment and an omen of what steps to take so that you're more in alignment. I love that part, by the way. Then you choose to take whatever step feels like the most peace, knowing that your spirit is the one that's guiding you into the easiest path to having your happiest life. And as Daryl says, there is nothing greater than the power of you. And when you are in alignment, you will naturally create your happiest life. So, welcome to the show, Daryl. And thank you so much for being my guest and talking to me about life because this is something that I think that humans and friends and family members and everybody out there feels it, thinks it, wants to talk about it. And I think that there's still a stigma about this, right? Like people really are, I don't know if it's an embarrassment, if they think that you're going to think you're crazy, if you're on the woo-woo medication, and people really don't like to reflect on this, even though there has been some sort of an energetic shift
Hmm.
on the planet, so it seems, where people are a little more open. Maybe it's because of social media and the facilities that we have with our communication, right? And people are getting a little more open to discussing the spiritual realms of life. So why don't you start off by telling me a little bit or telling us a little bit about your practices and how long have you been doing this? How did you get started?
Oh my, that is a story. So, first off, thank you for having me here. This is amazing. I love what you're doing, and I love the fact that you are just laying everything bare. And really, to the audience that is listening, you found a great place where you can just explore what you need to explore in your life. So, thank you for letting me be a part of this.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure.
So I got my start, and I guess let me give you a little bit of background. I was raised in a very conservative Christian home. And when I say conservative Christian, I can't emphasize the conservative enough. Like we had strict rules of what you were allowed to do and not do on the Sabbath, and you better be in church every Sunday. And it doesn't matter if it's going to cause anyone else any issues. It's more important than anything else you're going to do. So we had all these rules and regulations we followed, and there wasn't a lot of leaning into you feeling for yourself. You were told how to feel, how to think, what to do, what was right, what was wrong. And so I was raised in a place where not only was it stigmatized to talk about these subjects, but it was stigmatized to even think you had any of your own power. You had a very specific place you belonged, and that's just the way things were. Um, and that never really worked for me. I remember my dad, when I was really young, was talking to some members of our church congregation and said, "Yeah, he just kind of it marches to the beat of his own drum. He just wants to figure things out his own way, and we love him, but he's not really following the right path,
Right, right.
which is okay. Looking back now, well, it's one of the greatest blessings he could have given me was not trying to force me to follow that path, but let me explore a little bit. Um, but it wasn't until so I got married still within this same tradition, this very conservative Christian home, married a very conservative Christian woman, and we started to build our family the same way we were used to our family being built, and it was hell. It was didn't feel good. It didn't feel right. I remember when we first got married, I was the dutiful husband that I will do everything I can to make sure that she's happy and whatever she needs me to do, I'm here to serve my wife, etc. Within about 2, 3 weeks, it switched from doing whatever I can to help her and make her happy to, well, I'm going to do whatever I can so she's not more mad at me because she's mad at me all the time anyway.
There
To
was
about,
no there was like no synergy between the two of you.
no, not at all. No, we
Yeah,
should have never gotten married.
right.
But and then about halfway through, and it was 11-year marriage, and about halfway through, I just gave up. I knew no matter what I did, she's not going to be happy. We're not happy together. Our kids are suffering from it. But even that wasn't really my wake up call. It was one thing that happened when my oldest daughter, was about 9 years old at the time. And she came to me and said, Dad, why didn't you marry someone who actually loves you?
Ouch.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, things have got to change.
Yeah.
So I realized what damage we were doing to the kids. And I went to my wife then and said, hey, we got to go to counseling. We've got to do something. We can't keep acting like this. It's hurting the kids. I'm not going to accept you treating me like this anymore. I'm not going to keep behaving the same way I was. Whatever we need to do, this stops today. Then the very next day, she said, okay, so I filed for divorce.
No
That was it.
way.
Doesn't try. We're done. But the weirdest thing was I didn't feel bad. I felt relief. I felt happy. And it was from that moment forward that I started to really question, what do I actually believe? What do I actually know is true? And I remember getting to a point where I had just wiped the slate clean of everything I believe. And it was a particularly painful evening for me, if I'm being honest. I was in an apartment in Salt Lake City, Utah. My kids were back in Texas with my ex-wife. I was by myself, wondering what life was about, and just started crying. And it was the dark night of the soul that I felt like I had nothing. I had nobody. I had no direction. I had no clue what life was about. I just laid on the floor and cried for hours until the crying passed. And on the other side, I remember getting up and thinking, I feel a great peace, but I don't believe anything. Like I could not tell you at that moment what I believed was true or not. So I
I,
started my
I,
own experiment. Go ahead.
I'm listening to you and I'm listening, you know, it's like if I'm talking through you right now, right? Like I can't I
Nice.
cannot agree more with everything that you're saying. And sometimes like being alone and that self-reflection, as
Yeah.
hard as it is, and you're just like in your head the whole time. And it's so difficult, but I think it's so important for growth also because it really puts perspective to things like, what the heck have I been doing all these years? You know, what am I doing with my life? You
Yep.
know?
That
So
100%, 100%. And what was funny when I woke up from that experience is believing nothing, the peace I felt. And it
mhm.
shocked me. Like, how can I feel this great peace, but I don't have any answers to anything?
So what was the peace that you were feeling basically now that you were out of a miserable marriage? That was the first step?
Maybe, but the marriage had already been over for a couple of years at that point. So that
Right.
wasn't even a huge effect. But what I look at back now and realize is that was the first time I was recognizing my
Right.
spirit was telling me what step to take next. And it was okay that I didn't know anything at that moment. Because in that moment of not knowing anything, I can now create whatever I want.
So let me ask you this. So in that moment where you are alone and you're crying and you're self-reflecting, and you're getting these answers, or you're getting some sort of answers at that point, were you meditating at all? Were you practicing any form of meditation to get you to that level of self-awareness? Or this is just like that aha moment that just happens and then you move forward from there?
It was more like an aha moment at that time because I had not practiced any meditation at that point in my life. This was probably about 12 years ago that this happened.
Mm-hmm.
I had not done any spiritual practices outside of what conservative Christianity had taught me. But I think it was because I'd let go of all the attachments I had to former beliefs and former people and where my value lies, accepting the fact that my value wasn't attached to any of that let me feel peace in that moment. And I got to start experiencing things in life. And I noticed there was a new way of looking at the world. I would go have an experience and say, hey, does this feel like that level of peace to me? If it does, great. That's part of me. I believe that. If it doesn't, no, I let it go. I don't even care. I would
Now,
rather
did
feel peace.
did you get to that point where you're following the peace and the happiness and you're kind of letting yourself go and not fighting, surrendering to the peace?
Mm-hmm.
Was that something that you picked on based on, your college experience and the different religions and history that you studied in school? Was that the is that how you started at least applying that, or was this just like a calling that you had from within?
It would definitely was not because of any of the things I learned. In fact, it's funny that you mentioned that because one of my favorite philosophies to study when I was studying in college was Taoism. And a lot of what I practice now falls in Taoist philosophy.
Okay.
But back then, I didn't see it that way. I was just doing what felt good. As I look back now, I go, oh, the Taoists were right. I did that and it worked. But I didn't realize that's what I was doing. So it wasn't like it was a deliberate thing. I was really being called. And now that I know, I was being called by my own spirit to take the next step.
Your higher conscience.
Exactly. This is
Yeah.
my higher self saying, hey, this is the path. Take that step.
Mm-hmm.
Stop taking these other ones.
Right. Right. Okay. Okay. So then at that point, then what do you do? So now you're following your calling, you're following your peace. What is it that you start doing then? Where you start noticing changes for the positive in your life.
Well, and I'd love to tell you from that point forward, it was happily ever after, but it wasn't. It really wasn't.
It
Just because
gets
you
it
have
gets
one.
it gets worse before it gets better, right?
Well, and sometimes not. But with my path, and I think that's just true of most people, we have that walk, that aha, that awakening moment of things have to change. And then we change a little bit, but then we go back to what's comfortable. And then we change a
Why
little bit, then we go back to what's
Why
comfortable.
is that? That is so true. Why is that? Why is it so hard for us to stay so disciplined to something that we know that it's for our best self? Why is it so difficult for everybody? I know that it's difficult for me to maintain that level of discipline. I know what makes me unhappy. I know what gets me sad. I know what makes me feel better. I know the stuff that I have to do to keep me happy, yet I can't stay in that rhythm. I can't stay in that pattern. Why do we do that?
Okay, so I got an answer for you, but before we do, I want to do a quick experiment with you.
Okay.
I want to, I
Let's
want to, I want to trigger that with you right now. Okay.
Okay, shoot.
So I want you to imagine the person you love most in this world.
Okay. Done.
Who is that?
My daughter.
Okay, so you love your daughter more than anyone else in this world. What if you
Absolutely.
were told you have to leave your daughter and abandon her to be happy? Would you
I
do
don't
it?
I don't think I could do that. I don't think that I could do that.
You just pointed out why we do it. So now let me put this out there. Nobody is telling you you have to do that, by the way. You really
Right.
don't.
Right.
But the point is, we're so attached to a belief. Your belief about my daughter is so important and so special and so much part of my happiness that if you get a sign that says, no, it's not, you're like, I'm not going to do it. I'm more comfortable with this belief than what actually is.
Because of the
Now,
programming that we have. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, but the programming is so funny because we keep updating it and we think we're doing something different. So we'll take this programming we had from what our parents have told us, from what religions have told us, or whatever else, and then we take a step forward and say, yeah, but I'm my own person and I'm going to stand on my own 2 feet and I'm going to this. And instead of getting rid of the programming, because that's scary as hell, we just change it a little bit. And
Right.
now we feel better that we did something, but we're still living in the same program.
Yeah. That is so true. Very interesting. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. That's a good way of looking at it. You're right. It's the attachment that we have to everything.
Yes.
And the fear that we have of letting go. you
Yeah.
know and and you can apply that to things like getting a divorce, right? At the moment you're so, and I'm not saying you, just I know for myself, right? Like you get a divorce, you're so afraid of doing it, and then years later you start self-reflecting and you realize something that was such a horrible experience has been such a blessing long term because I'm so much happier now.
Yep.
And that applies to so many things that we're afraid of detaching from, yet long term it's It's for our best, it's for our best growth, right? So then what are some of the daily practices that you personally use for yourself that have helped you continue to grow on your spiritual path?
It's a great question. And actually, it goes back to what you were just saying. So, the idea that we look back at all these things that we thought were bad, but we look back and they realize when they were a blessing is the biggest thing I do on a daily basis is I don't look at outcomes for anything. Like, I'm going to take the step in front of me that feels like peace, and I don't care how it works. It could end my world completely to take that step, but if it feels like peace, I'm taking it. So if, for example, my spirit really, really called me and said, hey, you need to leave everyone you love and go do something else, I would do it without question. I wouldn't think, oh my gosh, well, what if I hurt these people? And what if they don't approve of it? And what if I'm abandoning them? What if the world looks at me as a horrible father or whatever it is?
You don't care.
Yeah, and I use the term I don't care even with my students because it helps them understand. But it's not that I don't care. It's I have so much faith that if I follow the peace, it's going to be better for everyone.
Right.
So the most caring thing I can do is follow where the peace is.
It's
And
kind
I'll
of
give
like,
you an example.
go ahead, go ahead.
So when right after the divorce, I lived in this beautiful home that I found by it was a miraculous find that I found this home that fit me and my kids. I was living 15 minutes away from their mom, so I could see my kids all the time. They were
Right.
very much a part of my life. And over the next year, just kept feeling this push over and over again to move thousands of miles away from my kids. And I remember talking to my mom about it, and she's like, well, that would be the most horrible thing you could ever do. You can't abandon your children and blah, blah, blah. You don't want to be one of those deadbeat dads that did this. I'm like, it just feels right. I don't know why it feels right. I finally did it. And what I didn't realize is, and no way I could have known this, but my ex wife was doing things with my kids that made our relationship worse that she could only do if I was nearby. For example, I was on a business trip and out of town one weekend. My ex-wife drove to my house with the kids, left them on my doorstep saying, oh, you're supposed to go be with your dad today. And then
When
left for
when
about
when you when you weren't home.
and then came back an hour later and goes, oh, I guess your dad didn't want you.
No.
And I'm thinking, and I didn't know that happened ever until my kids told me years later. But because I'd moved that far away, all of a sudden my kids and I are closer than we ever would have been had I stayed that close. There is such a huge, huge relationship built between all of them. My three oldest kids are right by me. The two oldest live right down the street. My son lives with me. And this relationship wouldn't have happened had I stayed right there where they
Right.
were.
Right.
But I
If
wouldn't
you
have known that. That makes no logical sense.
right, in retrospect when you look back, it's interesting the way that you say that, and I see it, and yet I'm still so afraid of everything all the time because everything that's ever happened in my life where I thought at the moment like this is it, this is the end, I'm crying, I'm devastated, I get depressed. 3 years later, and I've heard that saying so much, is this going to make a difference 5 years from now? That's the way that you need to start thinking about everything. Is this going to really be a life or death situation for you in 5 years? Or is this just going to be like water under the bridge? And you really do look back at it and you say, my God, that really was something that was just playing in my favor because if it wasn't a kick in the ass this way, I would never have done it. Right.
Exactly. Exactly.
And it has to be that brutal. It has to be that harsh in order for you to do that leap, take that leap and move forward.
Yep.
Um,
Well, and
okay.
let me go back to your question about the daily practice that I do, because the way I keep myself in that mindset, one of the biggest tools I use is meditation. And I'm sure that your listeners and viewers have heard this over and over again from a million different people. Oh, you need to meditate, and if you meditate daily, then it's healthy.
Breathe, breathe, breathing
Yeah,
techniques, meditation.
but
Yeah.
but yeah, and I want to like take that the hipness of meditation away. When I'm talking about meditating, I'm talking about I get to the point of my brain shuts off and no, it's not your time right now. I'm letting the spirit drive my bus. I know that you think you've got all these ideas about how things are going to work out. And if I don't end up going into work today, then I won't have enough money to pay my bills and all these other silly ideas. I don't care. I'm going to get myself into a point where I know and can feel the connection between my spirit, my heart, my mind, and my body until before I do anything in my day. Once
And
I'm connected, now I'm ready.
so you do that every morning before you start your day. That's the first thing that you do.
I meditate in the morning, I meditate in the evening, and then during the day, about midday, I'll meditate to just kind of check my alignment, see where I'm at.
And how long do you meditate for when you start?
Um, well, when I started out, it was about 30, 40 minutes at a time.
From the
Right
very
now,
from the beginning? You were doing
yes,
30, 40 minutes?
yes, ma'am.
Wow.
And it was not easy. My mind was racing a million miles an hour, and I
I
couldn't
can't,
get it to
I
shut
can't
up.
do it. I cannot do it for the life of me.
You
I have
can.
tried. I
I promise
can't.
you can.
I'm sure I can, and you're going to teach me because I'm definitely going to
Yep.
be part of your workshops. But I am telling you that I have tried and tried. I've done it in the morning. I've done it at 3 in the morning. I've done everything where I'm thinking, okay, nobody's going to bother me right now. My daughter's sleeping. I'm not working at this moment. I'm tired. So this is a good time for my brain to shut down. Maybe a minute, maybe two if I'm lucky. Then I start thinking about everything else. What do I have to do tomorrow for work? What bills did I pay? Yeah, I
Yep.
can't do
And
it. I
then the
struggle with it.
meditation moment's gone, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Guess what? You can. I meditated for 30 minutes, not because I could quiet my brain for 30 minutes, but because it took me that long to quiet my brain for 1 minute.
Ah, gotcha. Gotcha.
But now I'll tell you, I can spend 30 seconds to 5 minutes and I will get into that state. And I know that state. When I get to the point that there is no thought except for, cool, my brain is clear, then I'm ready to go. And it takes practice. And the reason why it takes practice is because we have limited cognitive resources. You can only think so many things during the day. You
Right.
really can. And this has been proven by psychologists. This has been proven by psychiatry experiments, by EEGs that measure brain waves. You only have a limited number of cognitive resources. And meditation isn't quieting the mind so you can have a spiritual connection on a physiological level. It's training you to focus those resources where you choose to focus them. So once you can learn to, in fact, there's an old technique that's taught by Indian gurus for many thousands of years that you look at the flame of a candle and only
Yes.
think about that flame until you can think about only that for 2 minutes.
So that is the one technique that has somewhat helped me. And I have the candle. I bought the whole kit. I bought 16 candles, okay? And that's been helpful to get my mind to just focus on the candle burning, right?
Why?
And
Why does that work and nothing else does?
because I'm focusing on my attention on something.
That's the point. We think meditation is this idea of no, the brain doesn't get to play a role. No, the brain plays a focusing role.
Right.
And so it might be focusing on maybe instead of the candle now, you're focusing on feeling the alignment of your spirit, your heart, your mind, and your body, and you're actually visualizing the energy move. Well, now you're getting into alignment. And I think that we love to categorize in our society too much. We put everything in boxes. And so, well, while I'm meditating, I can't let my mind get in the way. Well, then what is it going to do? It can't do nothing. Okay, well, if I focus on a candle flame, I can start to do that. Well, good. Then there's where you start.
Right. Just start.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Just
And
get
you don't
started.
have to be perfect at it. Nobody is. Nobody ever will be. The point is, as you take steps forward, you get more and more into alignment. The more in alignment you are, the more naturally you create your happiest life.
Right. So let's dive into and I can get a little vulnerable with you as far as struggling sometimes with anxiety, right? Like it's just
Yeah.
something that life. I'm a single mother, a full-time career, I'm pretty much alone, and sometimes I get too in my head about that, and it really causes states of panics at moments where I've actually had trouble breathing. And I have had to force myself. The pandemic for me was brutal. Just being stuck in this house. I live in a very small apartment with my daughter. I'm stuck in these four walls. My daughter's getting homeschooled at this point. I'm no teacher. I have major ADD too. We're just like at each other's throat. She's falling asleep in bed as the teacher's trying to teach her over a computer. I'm struggling to pay attention with work, and I'm an adult. And what helped me a lot was that I started forcing myself to walk outdoors, not go to a gym. I can't go to a gym. That stresses me out. Too many people around me, too much noise around me. Walking outside, outdoors, looking into nature, looking at the trees, breathing the air with loud music that It works for me. Very loud music as I'm just walking. And then whatever comes to my mind, I just kind of like, I'm fixing the world as I'm walking. That helped me a lot. And I got to a point where I was walking 3 to 4 hours
Hmm.
sometimes a day because I was just so in the zone, in the moment, right? I was following my peace. It was helping me a lot with my anxiety. So, what I'm noticing is that still to this day, the pandemic, I think, had a lot to do with it, or at least brought it out to attention to the world, is that the majority of the people out there right now are on antidepressants,
Hmm.
benzos like Xanax and Valium, and anything sleep medication, ambient, and they're not able to drinking alcohol, smoking weed. I've met a lot of people that are microdosing with mushrooms right now. I don't know if that's a safer alternative to taking medications, pills for antidepressants or not. But what I'm telling you is that what I'm noticing is that 99% of the people that I speak to and I open up about my vulnerabilities with what I'm struggling with tell me that they're going through the exact same thing. So what's happening? Why is it that all of a sudden everybody is in so much panic and so much fear because it's fear based. Everything is just fear based. So what is it? What's happening? Is it social media that they're just throwing, World War III down our throats right now? The politicians, um what's happening in the world from your perspective spiritually, and how can we ease that pain that we're dealing with right now?
So let me ask you a question, and I'm going to answer this after you answer this question, but I think it'll help illustrate the point. So you were talking about when you were walking out in nature, how that helped you,
Mm-hmm.
correct?
Mm-hmm.
So why do you think that helped so much when everything that was happening in the world was still happening, even though you were walking? What was
Because
the difference?
I was detaching from everything.
That's exactly the point. And
Mm-hmm.
so what it is we live in a society, and this has happened ever since the Industrial Revolution and on, but it's gotten faster and faster. We live in a society where we are bombarded with information that says your value is outside of you. What do you look
Mm.
like? What do you dress like? What type of job do you have?
Yes.
Successful you are? Do you own a home? I mean, you name it, one thing after another. Everything that you are of value has to do with the outside world.
Yes, yes, you're so right. You are so right. It's exterior validation, everything.
Uh-huh. And
Yeah.
so now that it's thrown in us faster and faster and faster, it gets worse and worse and worse on us. But here's the beauty of it. All these feelings that we experience, and depression and anxiety are the big ones. You're right. You keep pointing at those, and there's a reason why they seem to be everywhere in our society,
Everywhere.
everywhere. And I come from a family where everybody in my family, except for me, is on some type of anti-anxiety or antidepressant
Mm-hmm.
medication of some sort. Um, and I look at it, and I found myself questioning why as well for many, many years until I realized they're just omens. Your heart your heart plays a very specific role in keeping you on a path where you're most at peace. And that is, does this feel good or not? But we're
It's
taught,
it's that simple.
it really is. But we're taught if it doesn't feel good, well, fix the feeling. Don't fix the thing that's causing the feeling, fix the feeling. Oh, I'm sorry, you feel stressed? Well, instead of changing your situation so you're not in a stressful situation, deal with your stress, take some medication, get yourself some caffeine, and get up and get to work.
Yes. Yes. You're yes.
But the
Yes.
reality is, many, many cultures throughout the world teach this in their own way. But pay attention to how you feel because energy doesn't lie. And if it's for you, it will feel good.
Right. Right.
If it's not for you, it'll feel bad. But the universe loves you so much that it will not allow you to feel good in a situation that's not for you.
No matter
So
how hard you try.
yeah. So you can force it, you can fight it, you can say, I'm going to do it anyway because I'm supposed to, because everybody tells me this is the way the world works, and I got to do it that way, and I got to push, and I got to hustle. And then you get worse and worse, and then your health starts to fall apart, and then everything just goes to crap because the universe is saying, no, this isn't for you. Oh, you're going to keep going anyway? Well, I'm going to make that fall apart and not work for you. Now you're going to change directions? No? Okay, well, now your body's going to fall apart. Now are you going to change directions?
in
And
the in the teachings of Dolores Cannon, those are one of the things, and you know, I'm not like, again, I just got started, where I'm fascinated by everything that you're talking about, and I really want to perfect that knowledge for myself. Everything that you're talking about, I want to apply it for myself. So I believe that we met for a reason, you know,
yes, we
and I
did.
told you that the other night when we were talking. Um, so in her teachings, as a hypnotherapist, one of the things that she talks about is that people create their own health issues and
Yes.
illnesses based on, I guess, not doing what you're supposed to be doing, right? The unhappiness that we're feeling on a daily basis, boom, cancer. So is there is it really because we're just that unhappy and we get sick as a result of it? I mean, it makes sense. Or is there a genetic component to it as well? You know, my father had cancer, so now I have cancer too. Or is that all just, you know,
Well,
human
let me ask you a question.
programming?
So, every single child of every father that's had cancer, do all of them get cancer?
No, no.
Well, then it's not 100% genetic, is it?
Right, right.
So, let me give you an example.
And it's a controversial subject, right? What we're
Oh, yeah.
talking about, you know, and I get it, and it's and I say this with all due respect. But I do think that when we're living in a moment of complete stress and utter stress from the moment that we wake up to the moment that we go to sleep, we're gonna get sick. It's inevitable. It's gonna happen. Something, our body's just gonna cave in at one point or another. That's not a way to live. We're not supposed to be living where we wake up, go to work, come home, cook, pay bills, wake up, go to. That's not the way that we're supposed to be living. There's something wrong with this dynamic, you know, which is how everybody's living, at least in my city. And that's what I'm
Hmm.
experiencing all the time. And that's why everybody's so depressed.
Hmm. And you hit the nail on the head. And actually, your body plays this very unique role in alignment. So you are not your body. You are not the health concerns that are happening to you. You are not all the things that are exist in your life, the job, the role of a mother, of a daughter. You're not those things. Those are just things you're experiencing. When you get down to your core, you are a spiritual being of pure energy. The entire universe is made up of that same energy of creation. Your spirit is already vibrating at what is your happiest life. It sends signals to you all the time. Those signals come through as thoughts based on what our beliefs are. So, for example, if your spirit is saying, hey, you're meant to live a life that's completely free and happy, but you believe you have to work hard to do that, all right, here's more opportunities to work hard to prove to yourself you can do that. But I'll just give it to you if you stop believing you have to work hard. And the body comes in as an amplifier. When you're in alignment, your body naturally heals itself because lower levels of cortisol and stress hormones, higher levels of dopamine and some of the other hormones that help heal the body. But your body will naturally heal itself when you're in alignment. When you're out of alignment and not following your peace, it also amplifies that and starts to fall apart because the universe isn't going to let you stay stuck in a place where it's not peaceful. Even if it has to force you out of it, it will do it.
So let me ask you this. If you are a person that's numbing the pain with antidepressants, benzos, alcohol, weed, is that playing um a limitation in your awakening and your spiritual awakening? Does that block it? Does that somehow impair you to connect to your higher self?
It impairs your ability to be in a deeper level of alignment for sure. But I want to get one thing really clear before we finish that question. You can't stop yourself from being led to your happiest life. It doesn't matter how hard you fight against it, you're still going to be taken that direction. And I'll give you a quick example from my life. So I was a business consultant for many years, had an amazing high paying job, and it was miserable. I hated it.
Hmm,
And I knew I hated it, and it was stressful. And my body was starting to fall apart. I ended up in the hospital a few times, but I have to do this job because it pays the bills,
right.
because it buys the beautiful home, because blah, 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 blah. What all the reasons? Because I wasn't listening to the omens that my own spirit was telling me, this isn't for you, change directions. Eventually, I got a text message from the boss of that company that said, oh, we're not paying you anymore because we ran out of money. Here's the carpet pulled out from under you. Oh, you're not
That's
going to
it.
move on your own? Well, I'm
We're
going to
gonna
make
we're
you move.
we're gonna do it for you. That's so interesting. That's so true. I do
Yeah,
believe that too. Even if we don't want it, it's what I was saying earlier. You get that kick in the butt, right?
you
Like
do.
it's
But we
gonna
can do it
happen one way or
immediately.
another. We can either take the short route or we can take the long route, but we're gonna get to
Yeah.
the same destination at the end, right?
Yep.
Now,
And so like the way, well, go back to the medications though, because I want to make sure that especially for the viewers that are taking some of these medications, I want them to know there's hope beyond this. Because you can numb yourself all you want with the medications, the alcohol, the weed, the flamboyant parties, going out and having sex with four people every night, whatever it is you do to numb yourself.
promiscuous lifestyle, sure,
Yeah.
sure.
You can numb it all you want, but eventually that's just a band-aid and band-aids fall off.
Right.
That's not going to fix it. What will happen though is you're now taking the long route. Okay, if that's what you choose to believe and do, then the universe is going to say, okay, well, if you're over here, then let me give you a signal while you're over here. Oh, you're still not paying attention? Let me give you one over here. And it's never going to give up on you because it knows the happier you are, the better the whole universe is.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. Now, we talked about the medications. Do you believe that the food that we intake also plays a role, like, with all the chemicals that they're putting on foods here in the United States in particular, um, the steaks and the hormones that they're pumping into the cows when we're eating all the meat? Is it healthier to be a vegan for to feel better and for this mass awakening, or is that all just BS?
So the answer is both yes and no, and it depends on you. So let's go back to the concept of follow the peace. First off, yes, I do believe that, especially in the United States, we have food that is full of chemicals that is really horrible for capitalistic reasons and not really the best food you can get. I 100% believe that. But that's a surface level belief. I also believe that I am such a powerful creator, I could choose to create a life where none of that hurts me and eat
Okay.
it and be fine. But it's based on your level of belief. And whatever level of belief you're at, you're going to be guided. So if, for example, and I'll give you an example from my own life. I used to suffer from horrible psoriasis. My body from head to toe was covered in itchy plaques all over the place. And my skin was just horrendous. And I did a meditation and thought, I'm going to stop eating gluten. And it fixed it. It fixed it because I had to have a belief that I have to do something with my food to fix it. If I didn't
Okay.
believe that, I wouldn't need to do that. It would
Right.
just be fixed. So we're given what we can believe is true.
I saw somebody the other day talking about that, and it was a little more extreme than giving up gluten, but they were talking about, for example, like smoking cigarettes. If you
Yep.
believe that the cigarette is not going to really cause any damage to you, you're going to be okay smoking the cigarette. You're not going to get sick from it. But if you keep believing that, which it has been proven that it's toxic chemicals in the cigarette, that it's going to give you cancer, you're going to get lung cancer from the cigarette. I don't know how much truth there is. I'm still with the belief that if you smoke the cigarette, you're going to get the lung cancer. But that's what they were saying, that it really is a level of whatever belief that you have. And I guess that would apply also for the food. That's what I think too. I think that, if you feel right eating the meat, it's making you feel good, go ahead and eat the meat. Maybe you can
Yep.
try to choose a little higher quality of meat, right? Grass fed and, all that other stuff, as opposed to all the ones that they sell over at Publix here, where they're pumped with hormones. So,
Well, and
um,
let me tell you, I for a long time was messing with my own diet and messing with, what herbs and supplements should I take to be in my healthiest condition. I am healthier now than I've ever been. I am stronger now than I've ever been. I'm working out 3 to 5 times a week, which I've never been able to do. And I don't care about my diet. I don't monitor it all. I
right.
just had fast food before we did this.
Yeah, yeah. I believe that too. I think that, sure, try to eat healthier, right? You do feel better when you eat healthier. But yeah, every now and again there's nothing wrong with doing that. Just anything in excess is always going to be bad, right? It's about,
Yep,
maintaining self-discipline for everything. So let me ask you this, and I'm jumping all over the place with you,
that's fine.
but do you have the belief that we when we choose to come as humans into our bodies, right? that we already signed a contract, how Bashar talks about it, and we already are telling ourselves when we're coming in here, the lessons that we're supposed to learn in order to release all of the karma or karmic pasts that we've had. So we're already coming in here and we're the ones that chose this, and we're the ones that chose all these hardships that we're smacking ourselves in the face for. We're the ones that told ourselves this is what we need to do in order to grow. I mean, we know we're going to die. Everybody knows that's the one guarantee that we do have in this lifetime, is that we're all going to go at this point. So why do we stress so much? Did we bring this on ourselves to just become a higher, better version the next time we come
Sort
around?
of. Sort of. Let me ask you this question, and I think it'll help illustrate. So, what is one thing in your life that you find a big struggle right now?
One thing in my life that I like, the letting go of fear. I
Okay.
I, I have fear, letting go. I guess it would be letting go. I have strong attachments to people, to things, and I recognize that that it's not bringing me happiness, yet I have an attachment. And that's something that I'm personally right now working on, letting go, surrendering to the peace, and seeing where it goes from there. And then that fear factor kind of plays in.
Sure. Okay. So, your fear of letting go of attachments. Let's say attachments to people.
Mm-hmm.
So, you have this fear of letting go of these attachments to people. So, do you believe at one point you were a spiritual being up there going, let me pick fear of letting go of attachments? That sounds cool. Let's try that. Do you really believe that?
Uh,
Does
yeah,
that feel right when you say it?
yeah. Yeah,
So, you chose that.
I could see how um a higher self of a higher version of yourself can play a role of a teacher, where you're already coming in and you're saying, it's like you would do to your child, right? Like, that this is going to be a healthier route for them to get this education and go to college and get it, because you're going to have a better job and they're going to make more money. Is it necessarily the best thing for them personally? Well, you don't know that part, but you know that they're going to have an easier life based on the programming and experience that you've had. So I could see how a better version, a higher version, a non attached, right, fear based version of Monica can come down here and say, you're going to do all this because we're trying to make you a badass and you're still weak. So this is how we're going to get you there. Yeah, I
That is
could
a
see how that.
lot of meaning put onto one simple thing.
Yeah,
So,
I'm.
but let me walk you through what I just heard happening here. So you just told me this situation where there's some higher version of yourself talking to a lower version of yourself,
Mhm.
telling the lower version of yourself, you're going to go through this hell because hell is what you need to go through. So eventually you might be able to be your happiest self. Really?
I mean, that's what I've heard, right? With
Okay, but I can already tell that's not what you completely believe because every time we talk about it, you shrug your shoulders, you have to over
Well,
explain,
because it
you
sounds
have all the
crazy.
stories.
Because it sounds crazy. Like, you just said it back to me, in three sentences, what I just was yapping about. You said it really quickly back to me, and I realized how crazy it sounds. But yet, when you study the teachings of Dolores Cannon and Bashar with what's his name? Daryl
Daryl
Anka.
Anka. Yep.
Yeah.
And I love, by the way, I love both of them. They teach many, many great things. I love Daryl Anka and Bashar. I love Abraham Hicks, you name it. I've studied them all. Here's
Mm-hmm.
the problem I find with a lot of those little tiny details they get into. Number one, if that's what happened, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter why. We get so hooked on the whys. There has to
Mm-hmm.
be a meaning behind it. Well, if my higher self told me I have to go through this, then I guess I'm just going to go through this. That's my lot in life and that's my destiny. Do you want to go through hell having to let go of people?
No, absolutely not. I want to be
Then
happy.
why would you give a meaning to why you have to do that so that you can keep doing that?
Well, you see, that's why you're a teacher and I'm a student.
Um, First off, we're just seekers. You and I are equals. We're here having a discussion. I just have some experiences. You have some
Right.
experiences. I don't see myself as a guru. I don't see myself as a teacher. I'm happy to help anyone who I believe really wants the help. But here's the truth of it. You are all that there is. You are the universe. You are God, Monica. So as God, why would you say, well, I'm going to make you go through hell, God, so you can be more God? What it
So that
is these are just experiences.
so then why does that happen? So why do some people have such horrible experiences, deaths of their children, and
To
uh,
learn that it's just an experience, there is no horrible.
so it's just experiences. That's what
That's
it's all
it.
about.
And really, if you look at it, so yes, you're struggling to let go of people. You have a fear of letting go of people. What you've told me right now is I deeply care and love people in my life. Every connection I have, I cherish in some way. Beautiful. But now you just detach from the value of that experience of deeply loving, cherishing, and caring for people in your life. And you can still hold that trait, but be free to do anything else you want.
Right. It's so
It's us attaching value to it that makes it heavy. So, no, I don't believe you made some great contract of all the suffering you're going to go through and all the lessons you're going to learn. I believe you're just having an experience. Are you familiar? There's an old Chinese painting called The Vinegar Tasters. Are you familiar with it?
Mm-mm, I'm not. I'm not.
Okay. So, and it's the three wise men of ancient China, which are Confucius, the Buddha, and Lao Tzu, who created Taoism. And the three of them are gathered around this big pot that's supposed to be wine, and they're tasting it, but it's actually vinegar because the wine has gone bad. And Confucius has this just angry look on his face, like he's so mad. These people did not follow the rules and they ruined the wine, and now it's vinegar, because he very much believes everything has a certain order and there's cause and effect, and you have to do everything the right way, and then you'll be at peace and harmony. And so he's angry that the rules weren't followed. And that's why you have to taste vinegar. And then on the Buddha's face, he's got this look of suffering, like, oh, this is so painful. It's bitter. Because in the Buddha's teachings, life is suffering, and it's overcoming the suffering by letting go of all desire that you actually get to have peace. But Lao Tzu's face, he's happy. He loves it. He just got to taste vinegar. It's just an experience.
It's an
I just got to
experience.
have a new experience. That's cool. No attachment, no meaning. It's our wanting to put meaning so that our minds can have some way of labeling why something is, so it can figure out how to program us for the next reason that happens, is where we create all the stress.
So what kind of practices do can you give us some example of some of the practices that you teach your students in the workshops that you offer,
Yeah.
and the material that you share, which I'm really looking forward to Saturday. We'll talk a little bit about that after that. Walk me through that because I haven't been to one yet. I have never spoken to a spiritual teacher before. Let me start there. So again, like I am super excited about this. Um, so what are some of the practices that you teach your students then?
Okay, I'm going to teach you a really simple one that if every person who views this podcast right now will apply to their life just once, your life will change drastically.
Okay, shoot.
This is the practice of non-reaction. No matter what happens to you, I want you to understand it's not personal. Even if it feels personal, anything that happens to you is just a reflection of your level of alignment. Nothing is happening to you, it's all happening for you. So when I hit something in my life that doesn't feel good, for example, let's say I get a call from one of my kids and they say something horrible and I feel hurt. How could
Mhm.
they say that? I'm doing the best I can as a dad. Da, 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 da.
Right.
Okay, well, as soon as I hit that feeling, I go, wait a minute. My feelings tell me this is not part of my life of peace because it doesn't feel good. I immediately calm my body down because your body is amplifying that reaction that you're programmed to do because of whatever your brain has been programmed. So you calm the body down first. And that might mean close your eyes, take a few deep breaths, whatever you can do to get back into a physically calm state. Then I tell my mind, now you get to observe what happens and no judgment. We're not going to react. We're not going to respond. Just watch until the feeling has passed. Then, whatever I'm feeling, the hurt, okay, if I let that emotion play itself out until it's done without reacting to it, I've just trained my brain. When we feel like this, we're not going to act and we're going to let it go.
So then when we're in a moment like that where
Yeah.
where we're reacting to an emotion as opposed to calming down before, because it's a reflection, where we're at the moment. Uh, what do you do at that what do you do at that moment then? What you tell the person like okay, let's talk about this tomorrow when I
Maybe.
self-reflect?
Well, and I'm telling you, and this is an actual experience. So I had my oldest daughter who she's just gotten pregnant for the first time. So I might end up being a grandpa soon if everything.
Yay!
Thank you. But her emotions have been wild. And she
Sure.
decided she was going to dump everything on me one night. And I let her keep going while I'm practicing this. I'm not getting in the way of her experience. So she's just going off on me, and I'm a horrible dad, and I've never been there for her. And this is one that blew me away. If I really loved her, I would fight back with her. I'm like, what? Anyway, but she has her own beliefs. So what I did was, as she was going, and I couldn't even get a word in edgewise, I took a deep breath and said, okay, I'm going to calm my body. She's going to do what she's going to do, and that's fine.
You let her do her thing.
Let them do what they're doing. That's fine.
Let them. I gotta take notes on
Yeah,
Saturday.
good. Then, there with my calm body, I reminded myself this is just a reflection. There's nothing personal about me in this.
Mm-hmm.
My mind is just going to observe how I feel and what happens until it passes. And I felt hurt, but I allowed the hurt to feel until it passed
Mm-hmm.
and realized I did the best I could. Even if I made mistakes, that's okay. And then the very, very next thing I do after that, when the moment has passed and the feeling is gone, I ask my spirit, what is the next step that feels like peace? And when I asked myself that inside, my daughter was still talking, by the way, on the phone.
The
So I,
entire time.
yeah, so I asked myself that, and the next step that felt like peace was just tell her you're sorry. I'm like, okay, I don't even know what I'm apologizing for, but okay, I'll trust you. I was like, honey, I'm sorry. How can I be there for you? Everything got fixed. I still have no clue half the things she said,
Okay.
but that's all she needed
That's
was,
all that it was about her.
yeah,
It wasn't about you, it was about her.
no, it was about me, but
No,
the
no,
universe knew.
I, I get it. It was about you, but it was just an emotion that she was feeling where she was, it wasn't necessarily your problem at that moment, but
Well, and nothing outside of you is ever your problem. Let it go. So if you can realize that nothing outside of you has anything to do with you besides it's just a reflection, okay, I don't have to fix that. I just got to work on me. Then
mm-hmm.
that reflection will automatically change.
Happiness within all the time. Okay. So tell us a little bit about your workshops and what
Okay,
you offer
so
and how you teach your students.
so my workshops are going to be a little bit different than what other people attend. There is going to be some teaching like you're used to, and there are going to be some presentations on slide. But every time you come to one of my workshops, you will walk away having gone through something during the workshop where you're actually applying it. I believe in integration. One of the things that I think makes me different than some of the other teachers out there, for lack of a better description, is I'm not just teaching principle after principle after principle. I'm teaching you how to apply them right now.
Right. Right.
I'm walking you through it at this moment. So, Freedom from Fear is the workshop we've got coming up on Saturday, and it's one I've been teaching for over 10 years now. And in that, you're going to actually go through a fear. You're going to get past it, and you're going to pick your next step and take it at the time during the workshop.
Now, how many students do you have participating in your workshops on average?
Lately it's been about 20 to 30 at a time. I also have a private group on Discord that has about 30 people in there. I've got a group on Facebook that is a Dr. Joe Dispenza study group that I admin.
Oh,
That
that's
has,
another one. He's great. Yeah.
he's very interesting, yeah, and it
Yeah.
has over 40,000 people in it. And I've got about 10,000 followers on TikTok. So I've got people that get my message from different ways.
Mm-hmm.
The workshops right now it's about 30 people. We cap it at 200. So it's never going to be thousands and thousands of people, and I don't want it to
No,
be.
but that's good. I like
Yeah,
that. Yeah. Absolutely. I think that, yeah, it dilutes the message when it's too many people. That's just my opinion.
agreed.
Um, so you have a workshop coming up
Yep,
this Saturday, the 22nd, is it?
yep. Saturday the 22nd. It is at 11 a.m. Central.
Central Time. Okay. I am going to add the link to all of the information for your workshop for anybody that's interested. What's the cost for the workshop?
It's $10.
$10. That's nothing. I
Nope.
couldn't I couldn't believe that it was only $10 when
I
when I
can't
saw that.
promise that my workshops are always going to stay $10 because my
Mm-hmm.
marketing team might make me push them up. But right now they're $10. And right now I've got specials for people as they get into the community. It's only $10 a month. And you get in right now, then it's going to stay that way. And all the workshops are free going
Mm-hmm.
forward.
And how often do you offer these workshops?
Every 2 weeks, I offer a different workshop. It's on different topics, but the topics are always based on conversations I've had with my students, with my community. This is what we're really struggling with. Okay, let's do a workshop on it. Let's all get together and work on this together.
Okay, excellent. I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to being part of this workshop. I've never done it. I did go to an Anthony Robbins event. Um and I have to be honest with you, I hated it. I thought that it was just like a big old sales pitch to buy more Anthony
Yep.
Robbins stuff, and I didn't really get the value. I thought that everybody around me was nuts. People were screaming at a stranger in front of them because these are techniques that he was teaching in order to self-reflect. I don't know. I was just they were walking on hot coal. I didn't get the message. Like I left early and it was a lot of money. It was very, very, very expensive. And I was invited by a friend, and this is the only reason why I
Mhm.
ended up going because I would never have paid. I think that the cost was for the general section like $2,000.
Yep.
It's not cheap at all. And again, I think that it was just like one sales pitch after another. That's all. That's what I got from it. He spoke very little. He had different people that were talking. It was the temperature in the room was 0 degrees. It was freezing. I guess they do that to keep people awake. It was just a horrible experience. So this was a few years ago that I did go see this. It was before the pandemic, and you're now the next workshop that I'm gonna try. And again, Daryl, I tell you honestly, and thank you again for doing this with me. It means a lot. I've only been doing this podcast for a year. It's not that large. I'm hoping that with time, it continues to grow. I love trying to help people. I think that this is a good platform where I can offer great topics such as these. And if one person, is what I always say, if one person can just take a message and it can help them somehow, then I'm doing something positive. And you know what, Daryl? It's making me feel good. It makes me happy to do this. You
There
know,
you go.
I'm not making a penny off of this. I do this in my own personal time and I enjoy it. I look forward to it. It brings me joy. So if there's any truth to anything that you're saying, which makes sense, I'm following the peace. I'm following the happiness doing this. So again, thank you so much. Your
Perfect.
work I think is amazing.
Thank you.
I've been following, I mean, you post very, constantly, on different topics. And every time I listen to the way that you explain it, you just have a way of wording things where I'm just like, oh, okay, I get it. Like, I just have that moment where I understand that you have a gift for that. You have a gift for explaining it. So I'm really looking forward to the workshop. I'll definitely be there. I'm gonna add all the information for anybody that's interested in joining the workshop this Saturday. If not, follow Daryl on you're on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. I'll share all of your links as well so that they can start seeing some of your work and the messages that you're providing for free to the community. Um, to end the podcast, I would love to have you on again and just, maybe after the workshop, just talk a little bit about everything that I learned there. And I can get a little more vulnerable with you on air. Is there a message that you would like to end this podcast where you feel that somebody can, letting go? That's it. I think that that's a big one. Letting go. How do you let go? Okay, so we talked about it. What's a message that you can just close the podcast out with, where you can tell people it's not that it's hard, but it's not that hard. We just need to be more open and surrender to the flow.
Yep, 100%. And I'll tell you, I do have one I want to end with, but really quick, I do want to say one of the reasons I think you and I are so in sync is what you just said about your podcast. You notice my brand isn't Daryl Shaun Price, the super coach. It is the power of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
you're.
care about the one person in front of me. If I'm helping you, that's what matters to me. So I've been doing this for over 10 years now. And no, I'm not huge like Tony Robbins, and I don't plan on being huge like Tony Robbins. I plan on being personal. I want to help this one person. And I know this one person will help someone else, will help someone else, will help someone else. That's what I'm in it for. And that really brings me to this is the whole point of why I do what I do, is because there's nothing greater than the power of you. When you're in alignment, you will naturally create your happiest life. All you got to do is get you in alignment. Don't worry about the rest of it.
I love it. I love it. Beautifully said.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daryl, for taking the time to speak with me again. And I'm really looking forward to Saturday. I'm going to be posting this podcast tonight. I'm gonna do a quick edit to it, add some final pieces, and I'm hoping to have it up just so that we can share the experience with everybody and give people time to sign up for the workshop. $10. You can't beat that price. And if it's
Yep.
gonna help you just a little bit, $10. I mean, come on. That's a Big Mac nowadays at McDonald's, right?
Yeah, but without the fries.
That's right. That's right. Are you seeing the amount of fries that they're serving you now when you go to McDonald's? It's horrible. It's a ripoff.
uh,
That's hilarious. Okay, Daryl. Well, thanks again. I hope you have a wonderful evening. And I
you
love this
too.
podcast. I love this information. I felt it to be very personally valuable for me. And I can't wait to do this again. And I can't wait to talk to you on Saturday at the workshop.
You got it.
Okay. Thank you
Beautiful.
so much. Have a
See you
great
there.
evening.
You too. Bye bye.
Okay. Bye bye.